All right, for Chapter 5, Lesson 5, we are going to add and subtract like fractions. Like fractions just means that they have the same denominator. So, to add like fractions, we are going to, to add fractions with the same denominator. So those are like fractions. Remember, the denominator is the bottom number. You add the numerators, so add the top numbers together. And you keep the bottom number. So you don't do anything with the bottom number, you keep the denominator. Okay, let's go ahead and go down to example 1 and look at A. So we have 3/10 plus 7/10. So those are like fractions because they have the same denominator. So all you need to do is add the numerators. So you would take 3 plus 7 and you keep whatever the denominator is. So we're going to keep 10. 3 plus 7 equals 10. We still have 10 on the bottom. 10 over 10 equals 1. Remember, you should always reduce your fractions if you can. Okay, B is the same idea. So they have the same denominator, so that's good. So on top, we will take negative 13 plus negative 9, and the bottom is just 16 because that's what we started with. Negative 13 plus negative 9 is negative 22 over 16. Need to do some reducing. Both of those can be divided by 2. So we end up with a negative 11 over 8. And that's our final answer. Remember, improper fractions are fine as long as they're reduced. Go ahead and pause the video, try C and D, and then come back and see how you did. For C, you should have taken negative 4 plus negative 4 over 5. Negative 4 plus negative 4 is negative 8 over 5. Those can't be reduced, so you're finished. And then D, you have 5 plus 3 over 8, which is 8 over 8. So you should have ended up with 1 for that answer. Okay. Example 2, we're going to throw in some mixed numbers now. Okay, so for letter A, we have negative 4 5/8 plus 3/8. You do not have to change them to improper fractions like you did before when you were multiplying and dividing. You have the option now to just keep them. Okay, so since we have a negative sign in front of here, in front of this 4, we're just going to give that to the 5/8. Okay, so really we have 4 and negative 5/8 plus 3/8. Doesn't matter where that negative sign is as long as it stays with the 4 and 5/8 somewhere. Okay, so to add these, add the whole numbers out front. So from the 4 and 5/8 we have a 4. From the 3/8 we have a 0 because there's nothing there. So we're going to add the 4 plus the 0. And then you're also going to add the negative 5/8 plus the 3/8. So 4 plus 0 is 4. Negative 5 plus 3, we have a negative 2. And we keep the 8 on the bottom. Well, 2 over 8 can be reduced. Both of those can be divided by 2, so that becomes a 1, that becomes a 4. And then in your final answer, you will want to move that negative back to the front. So this becomes -4 and 1/4. Okay, negatives make these a little bit confusing, but you want it with your fraction when you are adding them, otherwise you're going to end up with the wrong answer. So move it with your fraction when you're adding, but then put it back out front for the final answer. Okay, let's go ahead and look at B. So for B, we've got this negative, so let's move it over here. So we have a 2 from the first part, so let's put a 2. Plus we've got a 2 from the second part. Then we have a 5/12 plus a -7/12. Since we moved that negative, it goes with the fraction. So 2 plus 2 is 4. 5 plus -7, so for this part, 5 plus -7 is -2/12. Well, those can both be divided by 2, so we get a 1/6. Take your negative, put it back out front, and put your 1/6 with your 4. So your answer is -4 and 1/6. Okay, be careful when you're working with those negatives. All right, let's go ahead and try C. So for C, we have a 6 and 7/9 and a -3 and 4/9. We're going to move that negative again, get rid of it from the 3, put it with the 4. So we have a 6 plus 3, and we have a 7/9 plus -4/9. 6 plus 3 is 9. 7 plus -4 is 3/9. That can be reduced to a 1 and a 3. Since that negative eliminated itself when we added the 7 and the -4, our answer is just 9 and 1/3. Okay, so if it does eliminate itself when you're doing the adding, then it's gone. But if it's still there, put it back out front. All right, let's move over to D. All right, for D, we have a 5/8. So the number in front of 5/8 is 0. The number in front of 3 and 7/8 is 3, so we have a 0 plus 3. Then we also have the 5/8 plus the 7/8. 0 plus 3 is 3. 5 plus 7 will give us the 12/8. Do your reducing. They can both be divided by 4, so we get a 3/2. So we have a 3 and 3/2. Technically, since we are doing a mixed number here, we can't have an improper fraction in a mixed number. So 3/2 is really equal to 1 and 1/2. Okay, so we have the 1 and 1/2 plus we have that 3. So your final answer really should be 4.5 instead of 3 and 3/2. It's not correct to have an improper fraction inside of a mixed number. That doesn't work. Okay, well, let's go ahead and try the next set of problems. All right, the next set is subtraction. Subtracting is the same as adding, except you subtract the numbers instead of add them. So it's the exact same rule if you have like denominators, which we do. So to subtract fractions with like denominators, subtract the numerators, keep the denominator. Okay, the rules don't change from addition to subtraction. It's still the same idea, except now you're subtracting instead of adding. So let's go ahead and look at example 3. All right, so to subtract, letter A, 4/15 minus 9/15, since we have common denominators, all we have to do is 4 minus 9, and you keep the denominator, which is 15. Well, 4 minus 9 is negative 5 over 15. We can do some canceling. They can both be divided by 5, so this becomes a negative 1, and this becomes a 3. So then our answer is just negative 1/3. Okay, remember to always reduce your fractions. All right, same idea for B. So we have 9 over 20, so we have 9 minus negative 7, and we put the 20 on the bottom. Since we are doing minus and negative, they come together and become a plus. So we have 9 plus 7, which is 16 over 20. Do some reducing. 16 and 20 can both be divided by 4. So this becomes a 4, and that becomes a 5. So our answer is 4/5. And that's it. Okay, go ahead and pause and try C and D. When you've finished, come back and see how you did. Okay, so for C, we have a negative 3 minus 3 over 4. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6 over 4. You should have then done some reducing here. Divide them both by 2. So we get a 3 and a 2. So you get a negative 3 over 2. And that is your final answer. And then for D, you have a negative 4 minus 3 over 5. Well, negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. We keep the 5. We are finished. You cannot reduce the 7 and the 5. Okay, now let's try subtracting with the mixed numbers. So subtracting with mixed numbers is easier to do if you just change them to the improper fractions. Then the minus signs and the negatives don't get all mixed up and all of that stuff. So the easiest thing to do is to change them. So we're going to do 10 times 8, which is 80, and we get 89 over 10. Minus 10 times 6 is 60, plus 1 is 61 over 10. So now you can do your subtraction. So 89 minus 61 will give us a 28 over 10. We can do some reducing. Well, they can both be divided by 2. So 28 divided by 2 gives us a 14. And 10 divided by 2 gives us a 5. So we're left with 14 over 5. I am fine with you leaving that answer as an improper fraction. Okay? You do not have to change them to improper fractions to subtract them. You can do it like we did with the addition. It's just so much easier to follow the negatives and the minuses and all of that stuff if you don't have to worry about that, the extra numbers out front. So let's go over to B. So for B, let's change them both. So we have a negative. We'll just throw that out here. Throw it out front. Then we have 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So we have 16 over 5. Then we have minus. We have a negative again. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 28 over 5. Since we are subtracting a negative, remember that's the same as adding. So we need to do negative 16 plus 28, and we get 12. We keep our denominator. So we have 12 over 5. We can't reduce, so just leave it. Okay? Same idea for C. So 7 times 5 is 35, plus 3 we get 38. Keep the 7 on the bottom. Minus 4/7, already a fraction. So 38 minus 4 is 34 over 7. Double check to see if you can reduce anything. You can't. So that's your final answer, 34 over 7. Okay, same idea for D. So we've got the negative. Then we're going to do 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 4, so we have 14.